tablespoon and put that in 8 ounces of water, and you stir it around and you drink that charcoal, it's going to help to ease that burning, neutralize that acidity on the stomach. Okay. Yes, aloes, good question. If aloes can take the place of slippery elm. Yes, if you do have aloes, that will work phenomenally. Aloes, you will take a leaf, say for example, and you cut 1 inch. You got to peel off the green covering of the skin and rinse it. So if you see right under the skin, the green, there's a thin layer of yellow substance. That is the latex, and that will work as a laxative. So it will purge you. But if you rinse that out and you have the gel itself, and you put a little water in, say, like a NutriBullet or your blender, and you blend that 1 inch of aloes, and you consume that like 15 or 30 minutes before a meal. That again is going to help to go in and coat the lining of your stomach so that when you eat, you don't get that burning sensation. You can also use it before taking the Superflubum. Great question. Okay. There are some other conditions that are quite prominent, so we just name about 2 or 3. So individuals who are on blood thinners, then what can they use? So if you are taking blood thinners because of some underlying condition, then the combination will be different. We will not want to use the Superflubum because of the cayenne, because of the ginger, because of the turmeric, the garlic. Those things tend to thin the blood in and of itself. So let us use instead the supplements. You can use the oregano oil, 10 drops in a glass of water, or 10 drops if you wanted to use a tablespoon of olive oil, and you put your 10 drops in there, and you're able to consume it a little bit more comfortably without tremendous burning as you ingest it. But you do that morning and evening. Next, you want to have as an alternative golden seal. And you can use golden seal morning and evening in place of the oregano oil. You can use it 3 times a day, golden seal in place of oregano oil. Camu powder is another item, 2 tablespoons 3 times daily. Camu is like one of the top #1 sources of vitamin C. It is actually a fruit from the Amazon area, and it's concentrated with vitamin C. And if you don't have camu powder, you can use lemon, or you can simply look for vitamin C with bioflavonoids, and you want to consume 3,000 milligrams 3 times daily. 3,000 milligrams 3 times daily. Now, B-complete or B-complex, liquid B-complex is also another good option to use, because one thing you see with COVID is that it hijacks your red blood cells and decreases oxygen, and people would feel fatigued. And so the ingredients in a B-complex would help with your blood. Vitamin D, you want to consume 20,000 international units twice daily for 10 days. If you're not accustomed supplementing with vitamin D, you may find that going to a 20,000 can be too much for your system. So you usually would feel different in your head if you consume too much vitamin D. And so what you want to do is to start off with less, like about 2,000 milligrams, and do that 3 times a day, vitamin D, and that would help you, but you just work your way up. Zinc, 90 milligrams to 100 milligrams daily of zinc. And this is in a case where you have the COVID, okay, not as a preventative. Then liquid iodine is also another good option, used as directed on the bottle. And probiotic, and let me just say with liquid iodine, used as directed on the bottle, sometimes it might be mixed. If it is straight iodine, you would want to have a ratio of 1 part iodine to 10 parts of water and mix that before consuming. So if it's 1/2 teaspoon of iodine and then 1/2 teaspoons of water, okay, for you to consume. And then the probiotic, you want to consume 3 capsules per day. So probiotics, again, is given because the oregano oil can be really strong for the system. In addition, probiotics help with feeding your body with beneficial bacteria, and that helps with good gut health. So 3 capsules in a day, but you take 1 in between morning and lunch, or even you can come like 15 minutes before your breakfast, before your lunch, 15 minutes before your evening meal.
Nurses were deployed to Managua on Monday to deal with the spike of COVID-19 cases. The Minister of Health and Wellbeing, Dr. Michael Darby, says.
Okay, so let's see in the chat. Yes, 20,000 for the vitamin D. So remember, we showed you some statistics on Sunday evening with vitamin D and COVID. And what it showed is that high amounts of vitamin D in your bloodstream can cause the virus to be blocked, to be prevented from getting into your cells. In addition, there was a hospital out in Spain where as the patients came into them, in the first 3 days, they gave them as much as 60,000 units of vitamin D in the first 3 days. And it decreased their stay at the hospital and helped those individuals to recover quite quickly.
The Bahamas also awaits a
What about those who have renal failure? So that might be quite common. They can use the superflu balm and or they can substitute it with the superflu balm syrup, or they can use powder options or capsule options for turmeric and ginger and garlic and so forth. But if they made the superflu balm, it's the same as the original, except that we put 3 cups of hot water, so it's a little bit more dilute. And while the symptoms last, they take 6 tablespoons of the superflu balm while the symptoms last. All right, but basically it's the same set of ingredients. You simply add a little bit more water, so it's not as strong. Those with kidney failure can also utilize the supplements. Say, for example, the oregano oil. And remember, oregano oil works really great. If you don't get oregano oil, oregano capsules will work well just the same. So 10 drops in 1 teaspoon of olive oil, and you have that like 2 times daily. So if you did the oregano oil capsules, it would be like 5 capsules morning, 5 capsules in the evening time. For the renal failure, vitamin D, it is 10,000 international units of vitamin D. If you think it's too strong for you, then you start off with less. But when you're consuming vitamin D, you need to take it on a full stomach. It is a fat-soluble vitamin. It makes a difference if you consume vitamin D at the start of your meal as opposed to at the end of your meal. Vitamin D should rarely be taken at the end of your meal when you're finished eating and you have food in your stomach. Then you take the vitamin D. If you take it at the beginning, you can feel pretty weird, but it's more tolerable and it's better to be broken down by the system to help you to make vitamin D, okay, in the form that the body would use. So right after a meal is when you will take that. And zinc. So for renal failure, zinc, 30 to 50 milligrams daily. And remember, this is with if somebody has renal failure and they also have COVID. So next we're looking for vitamin C, be it through camu powder, 1 tablespoon, or if it is vitamin C with bioflavonoids, 2,000 milligrams daily. And you have probiotics, and you take that before breakfast, before lunch, and before supper meal. Vitamin B complete or B complex, you take 1 teaspoon twice daily, and that's going to be helpful. If you have renal failure teas, or here we have a renal failure situation, and on our website, we actually have some information there, like a sheet. So let me try and put that in the chat for you. Okay, so I see a question, if you have to wait a certain amount of time after a meal to take the vitamin D. No specific time, just as soon as you finish eat your food. So you will have food on your stomach when you're consuming it. In addition to the fats that you will consume with your meal will help in assimilating the vitamin D supplement that you took, okay? So on our website, you can find a renal failure diet plan, and you can download that. To help yourself though with renal failure, you don't have to think that you have a diagnosis for the rest of your life. Your kidneys can be helped, it can be restored by making the dietary and lifestyle changes that we have talked about in day 1. So if making those changes ease up the burden on your kidneys and help it to work better. But you can also use some of these recommendations: parsley, uva ursi, corn silk powder. And if you were to get equal parts of that, put it in a bag and shake it up. And then you scoop out 2 tablespoons of it. And then you add 1/8 of golden seal powder. So just imagine parsley, uva ursi, corn silk, all in a bag. You scoop out 2 tablespoons, put it in your glass jug, and then you take 1/8 of golden seal powder, put that in your glass jug, and then you take hot water, 40 ounces of hot water, and you put that into the jug, and you make sure it's a jug that could take hot water, okay? One time, I had a glass jug, and it was an antique one, like from my mother's mother or something, you know, so a thin glass jug from a long time. And I remember my husband took it and he put some hot water in it to draw some tea one morning, and it sat on the counter pretty nice. And when he was ready, he took up by the handle and lifted it, and gosh, everything just, you know, the water just gushed out because the base of it, the circle base, it disconnected. So make sure your glass jugs could take hot water. When I'm saying glass, it's really mason jars or one of those thick items. And so the hot water, and then you cover and you let that draw for 40 minutes to 3 hours. You drink as much as you can during a day. Maybe you might only be able to consume 2 cups, because if you are, in critical renal failure stage, then you would not be able to drink lots of fluid. And while this would help you, you will just need to consume less every day. And probably use it for a longer period of time. But if it is from the onset that you know your kidneys are threatened in some form, go ahead and use this as a tea and drinking 4 cups every day, and that's going to help to flush and restore your kidneys. We've had many people who has had that happen with them, restored the kidneys. All right, so I just want to share with you about if you're pregnant. So a lot of moms are pregnant and they're getting COVID. Then what can they take? They're cautious as to what they can consume. They're cautious not to do anything that will hurt the baby. So they can do the super flu bump as well. If you're a mom, you're pregnant and you have the COVID, do the flu bump. However, there's a caution. You don't want to do this close to delivery time. So if you're close to the delivery time, the turmeric we actually removed it. But the garlic can be one that will cause your blood to be too thin, right? So you don't want that close to delivery time. Notice the measurements, it's different, it's smaller amounts. So 2 inches of ginger instead of the 6 inches, so it's different. So 2 inches of ginger or 1 tablespoon of ginger powder, 4 cloves of garlic, 1 medium onion, squeeze 2 to 4 tablespoons of lemon juice, 1 teaspoon of echinacea you can add in there. And then you take cayenne pepper, a little, 1/8 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 4 tablespoons of honey, 2 cups of hot water. You put them all into a blender and you blend it up until creamy smooth. And then you consume 6 tablespoons every 15 minutes while the symptoms last. And that's what a woman would do for COVID. What about if you are, if you're breastfeeding? So if you're breastfeeding, then you will be concerned about your baby and about yourself. So how can you do this? So you would be able to do the flu bump. However, the oregano oil, we'd like you to take that as well. So how can you utilize the oregano oil? Remember, you need oregano oil morning and evening. And you can consume that. And you will simply take the 10 drops in the morning and 10 drops in the evening. But you got to follow a little logic as to how you would be able to breastfeed the baby and not let the baby get too much of that oil. So let's take an example to show how this works. Now, one of the key points is that you want at least 5 hours spacing between the time you took the oregano oil and the time you're feeding the baby. So it will get into you and move on in your system and not be, that strong. It would start to be broken down in your body. So babies like to be fed on demand. If they're up playing and cooing and so forth, I give them like 2.5 hours and then I say they expire, they stop, they need to rest. Okay, so these are the small ones. And then you have, say, for example, you start off your day like 4 a.m. You get up and you express breast milk and you put it down aside in the refrigerator for later use, like about 8 a.m. Then at 5 a.m., you breastfeed the baby. Once the baby is full with that breastfeed, you simply take the oregano oil at 6. Next, in about 3 hours time, it's 8 o'clock. So the baby is ready to be fed again. But you have some expressed milk that you're going to give to the baby. By 11 a.m., you would seek to feed your baby. And after the baby is fed, you continue to express some milk to save for later in the refrigerator. And that will be served at 5 p.m. At 2 p.m., you feed your baby again and you express some milk for later use, like about 8 p.m. So at 5 o'clock, you have your breast milk ready and refrigerated. You cool that down and you give the baby the breast milk in the bottle. And at that same time, you put a little 1/2 of a capsule of